So next week, Cleveland is going to be taking the national stage yet again, hosting the NBA All-Star Game. This comes after successfully hosting major national events like the MLB All-Star Game and the NFL Draft over the past few years. Our speaker today, David Gilbert, President and CEO of Destination Cleveland and the Greater Cleveland Sports Commission, along with being a graduate of our Leadership Cleveland class of 2001, has worked tirelessly along with his teams to bring these events to the city and provide priceless experiences for those who attend, while also driving significant economic impact for Cleveland. Today, we will learn more about what to expect with the NBA in town next week and the potential impact for the greater community. So please welcome David Gilbert.
Hi, Rachel. Thank you, and appreciate your having me. We have, as you said, a very exciting week coming up. For a lot of us, it feels like it's already here, and but it really is going to be something very special for Cleveland. And this NBA All-Star Game, it really is one of the most impactful events that Cleveland can host. It's estimated that based on past studies, and we actually have already contracted to do a third-party economic impact study that'll come out probably about 90 days after the event. But it's estimated that the event will have somewhere north of $100 million economic impact on the region. And really, the way that's measured, this is not about multipliers or media impact. That will also be part of it. But what's expected is, based on past events, somewhere in upwards of $100 million will be spent in Cuyahoga County from outside of the region that otherwise wouldn't have been spent. And that certainly translates into jobs and taxes. And then, of course, above and beyond, it's an event that is going to be watched in over 200 countries. Over 2 billion people around the world are expected to consume some part of this event, and all emanating from Cleveland. And it's not just one event. It's not just one game. It's interesting. This is, for the NBA, by far the most prominent basketball league in the world, and basketball is probably behind soccer, not probably, but is the most internationally played sport. This is really their Super Bowl. It's the one event that they can plan years ahead of time, where the NBA Finals, as an example, unlike the Super Bowl that's in a natural or neutral place, they don't know until, with the finals a few days out, where it's going to be played. So in addition to many, many official events, from 3 major events at Rocket Mortgage Fieldhouse, all will be sellout events. The All-Star Game, there's a All-Star Saturday night, which is a 3-point shootout and slam dunk and all that. You have a Rising Stars game. There's also many, many other official events, many taking place at Wolstein Center, a celebrity game, a G League game, an HBCU basketball game, celebrity practices, things like that, and lots of other events. But even more importantly, in some ways, is this event will have somewhere upwards of 500 private parties that are going to take place throughout Northeast Ohio in that time. And this is everything from big sponsors like Nike holding big events to celebrities holding Shaq's birthday party, and kind of amazing the stuff that, and we don't even know all of it, that are going to take place. And the fact that this is the 75th anniversary of the NBA elevates it even more. And like you said, we're really kind of in this incredible role on this incredible role that is pretty rare for a city. We hosted, in just a 5-year period of time, we're hosting MLB All-Star Game, NFL Draft, NBA All-Star Game. We have the Women's Final Four in 24. It really is an incredible run. Of course, that comes just after the RNC in 16 and a number of others after. And what's great is each one of these it's a very highly competitive effort to win. We were put in consideration once we had the Rocket Mortgage Fieldhouse transformation, but we bid against numerous other cities. An extensive bid process, a very lengthy contract negotiation. Greater Cleveland Sports Commission, our smaller nonprofit, is the signatory with NBA in terms of all the community obligations to put it on. And we had to raise about $5.2 million in cash from various public-private organizations to make this happen, to cover those community obligations. Huge ROI for the community because of that. But it's been a big effort, very big effort to get done. And once we are awarded, once the contracts are done for the Sports Commission, that really is where the work begins. We're our organization. We're not a big nonprofit. We have 14 full-time staff people, a few part-time people, and we're really built to help make these events bigger and better. And what's happened with NBA All-Stars, we put together called a local organizing committee, and put that together about 2 years ago. I would say the last probably 18 months is where the real work began. And we were joined at the hip with the Cavs, but many other organizations. The city, certainly from a safety and security standpoint, you had Downtown Cleveland Alliance, Destination Cleveland, many other organizations throughout the community that have played different roles in maximizing what this means for the community. And we had 8 different work streams, we called them. Each met regularly, focused on different areas. And it could be, things like signage, venues, safety, security, permitting, marketing, media, volunteers, and a great deal of programming that I'll talk about. And it's really meant to be making sure that at a minimum, we fulfill every obligation to the NBA that Cleveland or any other city would contract with in order to host the game. But our goal is to go way above and beyond. And our goal in any event that we host, and the Sports Commission hosts probably around 10 national events a year. There are obviously things I mentioned that you've heard of, but it could be the World Yo-Yo Championship or the U.S. Masters Synchronized Swim Championship, ones that easy to give away free tickets for. Bottom line is they all bring a lot of money and notoriety to the community. But in every case, our goal is that we provide more services to those events and those event organizers, and that they feel that Cleveland was the best host city they've ever had, because we want that repeat business. We need continually that word out there that Cleveland is one of the best cities in America for hosting these events. So a lot of what we've done is to make sure that from a logistical standpoint, so many extra little things happen beyond all the obligations that we have, but it's making sure that the experience when people get off the plane and get back on the plane at the airport is incredible. We're going to have live music and greeters and signage and food, and that's not normally done in other cities. We have gift bags that we prepare all of our bars and restaurants and hotels with signage and all the information that they need to welcome people. And even it's very much about fixing problems. I have to say, we're working right now with the Cavs Downtown Cleveland Alliance to privately contract help clear the snow off downtown sidewalks from the past storms that we had, and be standing and ready if another snowstorm hits. The city is doing the best job they can, but we want to make sure that when we have tens of thousands of extra people in town, that our sidewalks are clear. And it is so much about trying to anticipate issues and solve them before any small issue becomes a big issue. And then another thing that to us, quite frankly, we're really, really proud of is we try to use, and we've done this for many years, and really believe Cleveland is the best city in America at doing this, at using major events as a platform for other community change. We're lucky that we have this NBA All-Star game coming to town, and people, we have tens of thousands of people. They'll spend $100 million, get a lot of notoriety for Cleveland. But in most cases, that's where it ends in most cities. Well, what's critical for us is to look at where there's every opportunity to expand the reach of the effectiveness of that event on the community. So as an example, we've had a number of things in mind. So we are hosting, and again, I'll tell you, no other city has done anything like this. We're calling the Power of Sports Summit. It's been in the plans for over a year. We actually held a version of it around MLB All-Star Game in conjunction with the draft, and the biggest one to date is going to be around NBA All-Star Game. We had to raise a lot of extra money to do it. A lot of time and energy planning, in essence, a separate side-by-side event with the NBA's help that is going to be 3 days, all free, of all kinds of different programs, panels, all filled with national celebrities focused on 50 years of Title IX, focused on DE&I, focused on LGBTQ issues, using sports as a tremendous platform to elevate the voices around those issues and advancing those issues. We will have thousands of people attend. And I can tell you, the NBA is absolutely thrilled. We're doing programs with the Boys and Girls Clubs to help build new programs within their facilities. We're doing a major art contest focused on sports and cash prizes for kids around the community. We're doing enormous amounts of programming with city rec centers, whether it's allowing City of Cleveland kids who normally wouldn't have a chance to go to the events to come down and see them, or with the help of the NBA and the Cavs, rebuilding new gym floors and making sure that there is an enormous lasting legacy. We're also very cognizant that this event can be a platform for others. Particularly, we've looked at it with DE&I. So there's a great event each year put on by a gentleman named Larice Purnell called Real Black Friday. Well, we've worked with Larice. Normally it's in the summer, but it's going to be done at Tower City in NBA All-Star Weekend, marketed through and around NBA All-Star Weekend. It's going to be much larger, more impactful than normal. Not that's not a great event, but we have this platform with all these people in town, attention and media being paid, and he's going to have well over 100 vendors. There's going to be concerts, fashion shows, all free. We're doing a great program. Some of you may know Keke Palmer, pretty famous actress. We brought a program of hers called Save Our Daughters into CMSD. It's a 20-week program. She's going to be coming into town, meeting with hundreds of kids. There is a Taste of Black Cleveland going to be taking place. We had a major effort around a supplier diversity network where we identified many dozens of Black-owned businesses, particularly those in the types of businesses that vendors for NBA All-Star Game might use. And not only did we get their information and provide it, but we had a couple of different sessions where we invited the vendors into town. We had those businesses come in, so they met. So while there may be $100 million in spending, we would do our best effort to try and guide as much of that as possible into minority-owned businesses. And we believe that we feel very strongly that the NBA will leave here saying Cleveland was the best host city they've ever had. Maybe they're not going to say it about the weather, but they are certainly going to say it about the effort that this community put in to take care of them, make sure that they were more successful, and that the event maximized the impact on the community. And lastly, what I'll say is, and then open up to questions, we do it for two reasons. One, we want this community to benefit as much as possible by the hosting of this event. And we also want to make sure that this helps us continue to get more and more and more of these events to Cleveland. And by hosting it the way we do, we know that we get a lot of repeat business, that groups like USA Wrestling, USA Fencing, other groups bring big events back year in and year out, or every couple of years, because of how successful they are when they're in Cleveland. So, Rachel, I will turn it back over to you.
Great, David. Thank you so much. And what an exciting roster of events, and so many that many don't even know are going to be happening next weekend. So you mentioned kind of planning for the potential challenges and snow being one of them. What are some of the other challenges that you and your team are thinking through, and how are you looking to overcome those and plan for them?
One thing we've learned over a long period of time is that any event you plan, I mean, it could be a dinner party at your house, something is going to go wrong, just as much as you plan. And so in all the planning, one of the most important things is you try to anticipate so little problems don't become big problems. And that could be around safety and security. And we talked about snow. Certainly a lot of issues in this case around COVID that has, especially with the Omicron variant, that we hadn't really planned on, but as a group with NBA, the Cavs, us, City, numerous others really planned for. You plan for people who are looking for information. We have a social media command center that'll be open 12, 14 hours a day. So if we see things posted that if someone says on Twitter, or there are certain things we look for that they think there's an issue, we can have somebody respond. We're trying to work on making sure bars and restaurants anticipate when crowds are going to be there. So they can be ready for a lunch surge. They can be ready for a dinner surge. They can be ready for what happens afterward. And so it's so many different issues. Many that you have to plan way ahead of time, permitting things where if it's not done 2 or 3 months ahead of time, it doesn't get done. So that's why you have to start way ahead of time and start to work backward. But, I can't say there's any one particular thing, but kind of each of our groups, part of their charge, each of those work streams is thinking ahead of what could go wrong, what could we anticipate as any potential problems, and what could we do ahead of time to best prepare.
So you mentioned having to pivot on some plans, especially with the most recent surge in COVID. So very curious, what should attendees expect in terms of COVID and the policies, and what have you had to think through in that regard?
The good news is that what is ultimately settled on, and this may have looked different had the Omicron variant, had we been a month later in that Omicron variant. But I think it will, the biggest things are having masks on at official events and showing proof of vaccination. I mean, there's some mechanics to how that happens, but these are things that quite frankly, people are used to at this point. Anyone's gone to a Cavs game now, you wear your mask since the first of the year. Many places we go, you have to show your proof of vaccination. So thankfully, I think there are not going to be things that will seem too obtrusive or intrusive rather, and would be above and beyond what many of us have already experienced. So, there were thoughts of potentially other things, and there were a handful of people who canceled, a month or 6 weeks ago, some of their private events. Thankfully, not many, and all we know is anecdotal. But the good and bad news of us, getting that spike very early ahead of most of the country. Tough that we got it early, but one of the good news is that we were over it more quickly.
So coming off of your experiences with the MLB All-Star Game and the draft, what are some lessons learned that you've taken away and will be using for this experience?
I think with everyone, you learn a lot about, quite frankly, I think a couple things. You always think you understand what could go wrong, and you never can. I think there's always things that we learn about big crowds, what they're looking for, how to take better care of people when they're in town. Some things you learn, we communicate to bars, restaurants, hotels, but you know what? 2 years later, there's different owners and different bars and restaurants and hotel managers. So you have to do it all over again. I think I think one thing that we've really learned a lot over these past 5 or 6 years is how to work together in this community. The Sports Commission can't do it alone, ever. We have so many partners in this community. They may be different for different events, but we regularly partner with Downtown Cleveland Alliance, with the City of Cleveland, with Cuyahoga County, with on and on and on. And you just get to know each other. You know each other's skills, and quite frankly, you build a lot of trust. And we hear from events rights holders just how much it shows. they're amazed that an issue comes in and we can make one or two calls and it gets solved. And this community, I think we all know it and we feel it. Sometimes we take it for granted how much pride there is by Clevelanders for their own community. And that really helps. I think we take it very personally. And I say we, I think this entire community. And so just the fact that we've learned in these types of things how to work as a team makes an enormous difference. And every time we do it, it gets better and easier.
How much of a draw is Burke and the ability to accept like private jets a draw in being able to attract the events? And if that's removed to open lakefront access, does that impact the ability to get some of these major events?
I think for certain events, and it really is sometimes only the biggest, it's a nice to have. But I would say, quite frankly, if it went away as an airport, I don't think, honestly, it would affect our ability to any different than it would now to attract any of these events. And so, again, it's a nice to have for a certain segment, but those folks who are flying private to come in, if they end up flying into Hopkins, which is a 12-minute drive in, that's kind of what they're used to in other cities or even more in some cases. So it probably wouldn't make a really big difference.
So a lot of the focus is on downtown, but what's the impact on the surrounding area? So say the suburbs or hotels that aren't necessarily in the downtown core.
So for this event, it is so much of it is well of where spending is going to be well beyond downtown. What we do know is I believe the number is 28 official hotels that are being used by the NBA and their partners. And we have, I think the number is 17 hotels downtown. So that's 11 hotels, whether it's University Circle, Independence, Beechwood, Westlake, and so on. And that's only the official hotels. This will have many other hotels booked by fans coming in. And the rest of the world doesn't stop. So if you're hosting a business meeting here on Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, the following Monday, you're going to be staying pretty far out. And not only are the hotels going to be filled, but the bars, restaurants, and so on around them are also going to be full, shopping and otherwise. And then we've done, at least anecdotally, we know a lot of these private parties are being held throughout different neighborhoods, not just in downtown. And then we've tried to do everything we can to provide information to the people who want to host these events. Months and months ago, lists of venues all throughout Northeast Ohio. So they have lots of choices, not just downtown.
Speaking of the venues, earlier this week, we heard about the number of venues that are going to be allowed to stay open and serve until 4 a.m. Kind of your thoughts and reactions to that announcement.
I would tell you, it's a really it's a tough issue. What happens here is for an event like this, within the city limits, it can be anywhere, but in this case, the city of Cleveland decides bars, restaurants, anyone with a liquor license can apply to stay open. I believe to 4 o'clock instead of what I believe is 2:30. And this the city, we help to just collect those. We have nothing to do with what's chosen. The city then takes them and they look at it and they present it to the state. In this case, and I was not in the room, I don't know exactly why, but I do know the city felt that by allowing all of these to happen, they felt it would have created challenges for safety and security. And I think for them, they felt that was an overriding reason not to allow it. On the flip side, clearly you can understand where there are bars and restaurants that once they knew about 6 weeks ago there was the potential, they got very excited and extra spending would have happened. But I think what I believe the city was weighing is overall safety and security, versus those extra hours. And it's one of those difficult choices. I believe there probably isn't a right and wrong. It's a tough choice that is in many ways sort of damned if you do, damned if you don't. What I can say, and I believe this, I think it was Mayor Bibb who pushed to make sure with the state that well past the deadline that these applications could take place. He wanted this to happen. But I think when the volume came in and assessing, however they assess the safety and security, they felt the best decision was not to allow it. But I would say I think every one of those bars and restaurants still are going to be as packed at 2:30 as they might have been at 4 would be my guess.
So now that we've had the NFL draft, the MLB All-Star game, NBA All-Star game, the women's Final Four coming, what's the next big get on your radar through the Sports Commission?
It's tough. A lot of those are ones like MLB All-Star and NBA that, with 30 some teams in their league, if you can get it every 25 years, you're doing well. Many, like I think we might be able to get the draft back in the next 6, 7, 8 years. It went that well. And it's not necessarily where it goes everywhere in the league. We are hosting in 24 women's Final Four. We have NCAA men's basketball first, second round in 25. We have NCAA men's wrestling championship, which sells out Rocket Mortgage Fieldhouse in 26. We're hosting a really cool event in 24 called the Pan Am Masters Games. It'll be sort of a World Masters Olympics. We'll have probably 8,000 athletes from 50 or 60 countries, plus their friends and family. It'll be the biggest international gathering in the city's history. Our job it's not about one event per se. Our bread and butter are a lot of singles and doubles. Let's say we host 10, 12 national events a year. A lot of those are ones people wouldn't have heard of. The NCAA Division III Outdoor Track and Field Championship and U.S. Taekwondo Grand Prix. And we had one 3 weeks ago where we had called Junior Volleyball Association, a big youth volleyball tournament. We had 360 youth volleyball teams in, filling up every square inch of convention center and public hall, 5,000 people. Not something you're going to read about in the paper, but had a huge impact. Estimate between $3 and $4 million spent by that group over the weekend throughout downtown. So I think our goal is continue to hit those singles and doubles, and punctuated by every year or two the home runs, if not grand slams, that we all know about and get most excited about.
So speaking of the upcoming events, we have someone who is very interested in knowing, when is synchronized swimming coming?
I should tell you the month, but I don't remember. If you go to our website, clevelandsports.org, it's listed, but it is it is later this year, and we also, it hasn't been announced, but we have a second one next year as well.
And David, as you look ahead to what's happening next week, what are you most excited for?
Part of me says the day after it's over. So these are great. They're a lot of fun. They're also a lot of last few weeks, a lot of us said, okay, you know what? Let's put these things we're doing on hold until after All-Star game. And now you start looking at that list, like, crap, there's a lot going to hit us right after. I do feel like, we talk to our staff a lot about when you're in the midst of things like this, you can almost feel like you miss it because you're there, but you're working. It's almost like people feel like they missed their own wedding. They didn't get to eat there, and afterward you're like, wow, I wish I savored it. And we tell our staff, and I try to do this myself, take 5 minutes at some event and step back and look around and soak it in and just feel like, I had a hand in this. We do this because of what it means for the community, that if it weren't for us, this wouldn't be here. And we don't take all the credit. There's lots of people involved. But I think what I'm most excited about is just at some point, wherever and whenever it might be, finding time to step back and look at it. And, again, even if it's for 5 minutes, feeling like you didn't miss it.
David, thank you for everything that you and your teams at Destination Cleveland and Greater Cleveland Sports Commission have done to bring this event to our community, and for the amazing impact of both the All-Star Game, the draft, everything you've done to elevate Cleveland in the national attention. We are all so very excited for what next week will bring and to have Cleveland on the national stage. So thank you for all you have done.
Well, thanks for having me, and hope everybody gets to come down. There's still a lot of tickets available for a lot of cool events, so a lot of ways for people to still take advantage. So it should be a lot of fun.